Sit, talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch! You filthy... Flyover State of Fear. Welcome back to Flyover State of Fear. This week I have another great guest in Morgan Robinson. Morgan is a podcaster and overall a great guy on Twitter and in person and whatnot. You can find Morgan at Morgan Hasn't Seen It, and it's a wonderful podcast. Hey Morgan, what's up?
Hello, thank you. I like that you refer to me as a great guy because not many people do that. So thank you, Joe.
I mean, I can call you a piece of shit if you want, but like, I didn't think that was a good intro.
It just feels more like something I would be used to. No, I'm kidding, obviously.
Yeah.
I am delighted to be here. I really am. This is going to be a lot of fun, I guess.
Yeah, I can't wait. And you picked a we'll talk about it later as anyone new listener to the show. We'll talk about it in a few minutes of the show, but we'll be talking about Wicker Man today. 1973's Wicker Man. But first, how have you been? How's everything going? How's England?
Oh, England's crazy, obviously. It's ridiculous. I mean, the world is a mess, but we truck on.
I know, good.
Weird saying goes, I suppose. No, I'm okay. You know, a lot of my free time out of work is dedicated to doing my shows, my own podcast. It's a wonderful podcast. So, that's just recently in the last couple of months celebrated over 200 episodes of that show.
Congrats on that. That was amazing. I remember when you guys started it.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, 200. All of our podcasts at Flyover, Flyover State of Film or Flyover and now Fear, they're all bi-weekly. So Flyover State of Film's like, I think we've been doing it for 4 years, but we're almost at 100.
Yeah.
And then like one take Fear away, and then it's like 120 with like, specials and things like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that level of dedication means that your show is a success. Because if you didn't feel that, I feel the same with the things that, me, Janine and Nolan do as well. It's, if we hadn't been, if we'd have thought however long ago, this isn't worth doing anymore, then we have to chalk that down as maybe it's not worked out.
Oh, definitely.
But we're still going, and we're still love it every week. And it's great.
I think we're at 25 for this show or something like that. And that's about when I hit that mark. When I got to that 10, 12 episode mark, I was like, all right, we're here to stay. I also want to comment on, for people watching or listening, you have some great horror pops to your right.
Yes, I do. I have.
Was that Vincent Price, Invisible Man, Frankenstein, Dracula?
Yes, and I've got Edgar Allan Poe holding a skull.
Poe. I was trying to.
On the end.
Okay, that might be cropped, but that's what's there. Really nice piece. So for anyone listening to this show, we ask, what is your horror origin story? And you can answer that any way you want.
I suppose my horror origin story is a weird one. I guess I treat it a lot like my movie fan origin story, if you want to call it that. Is that, it often seems like people grow up surrounded by movie lovers and then become movie lovers themselves. Horror lovers, are shown horror movies at too young an age and then grow up to be a horror fan themselves. That isn't me at all. I'm kind of entirely of my own doing. I kind of just found I don't even remember how I found loving movies. I guess I just, when I was like 13, 14, just decided, oh, let's watch The Godfather. And
Oh
then just
yeah.
went, okay, down. And then here I am now.
I used to sit we had On Demand about that age, 10, 12, 12, 13 was about when that service came around. And I would just go by one eventually, you know, next one, A, B, C, you know.
Yeah, look, it's not like my family hated movies or something like that. Of course, I'd still watch movies, I'd still go to the cinema, but they certainly are nowhere near kind of my intense, unnecessary level
hmm
of let's call it obsession, because I suppose that's what it is. But about in
Hey
terms of
man, I got a podcast about movies. You have a podcast about movies.
yeah,
It's an obsession.
it's perfectly normal. But yeah, in terms of horror, I think that goes back even earlier. To be fair, I think I certainly remember watching some old Bela Lugosi vehicle
Okay.
when I was like 7 or something like that. I don't even really remember the name of it. I just remember it had Bela Lugosi in it and a dude dressed as a gorilla.
Oh, yeah. My
And
knowledge is slim with that. The
I couldn't really tell you what it is. I've never bothered to look back to it
sure.
like a distinct image. And then a few years after that, I remember I must have stumbled across something on YouTube or whatever random internet thing, and it was uh, kind of countdowns, top 10
Yeah.
villains, top 10 horror scenes, and you'd always have the same kind of the opening of Halloween, the opening of Scream,
hmm
the Samara crawling out of the TV in the ring,
Yeah.
and all this business, and it was just like, okay, let's watch these as an 11-year-old. This is fine, and just kind of gravitated towards them. I mean, it's weird because not that this has got necessarily anything to do with horror movies, but I also remember as a smaller child being terrified of like ghost trains at theme parks, like
No,
not
absolutely.
wanting to go on them at all,
Uh,
but not being able to take myself away from looking at them.
yeah, it's a thing in all. I think of like a lot of the children. It's like there's a morbid curiosity, right? Like
Yeah, and
I
that's
loved, and I still am scared of several urban legends today, and this and that. But like at that age, you're talking about the theme park, or like I would go to. I'm just saying, like myself, like I would go to the library, or the school library, and I'd find all their books on like folklore or urban legends. Did I ever actually read any of it? No, but I
yeah.
like taking it out and I like looking at it, but it scared me. So I totally get that. I do think it's a thing, especially with young boys. There's like
Possibly, I've not looked into the
a kind of that,
psychology
like
of it.
yeah, but it's there, and I don't know. I think what happens, it's like that's why when I asked this question, I said you can answer however you want because you could come on the show and you could have said I love the Wicker Man, but I don't like horror.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I love horror. People may think of me or hope to come to think of me if you are finding me from this lovely show as a guy who loves old movies, who loves
hmm
classics. Then classics is a term that I tend to avoid because what is a classic? That's such a vague, random term, and I don't really like it. But that's my weird opinion. But I am also mainly a horror guy, and
Sure.
I kind of always have been since I started really getting into movies, which I also feel was quite late at like 15 or something like that.
Yeah, I'd
I was
be a little older.
really starting.
Is there any was there any movie or show or anything in particular that hook you around those ages?
I mean, I don't think so. I suppose I was the most stereotypical movie fan at 15 years old. It's also like kind of
Could I
like
guess? 'Cause I probably have the same palate at 15 years old.
yeah, go on.
You're a classic film bro. Like sleuth of like I love like Taxi Driver. I still like these movies by the way, but like I'm into movies. I like Taxi Driver. I think it was 16 or 17. The Dark Knight was out, so I was like, "That's the best. That's a great movie." And these are good movies. And just a couple more. Wasn't my I don't like this movie. We just covered on Flyover, but it's of that canon. Like you're like, oh, and then you would add in like the Boondock Saints in there, but then it would so did I kind of hit it right? Of like, oh,
Little bit.
Pulp Fiction.
Little bit.
Maybe if you were a little cool, you may say Snatch.
Yeah, little bit. Certainly, you hit the nail on the head with Taxi Driver.
Oh, I by the way,
which is a great
absolutely,
movie.
I love these movies. Not Boondock Saints. I really did not like that movie. But Taxi Driver, I had a fucking poster in my the like a framed nice movie poster of all of these in my room, and then you realize what the the term film bro is, what that what that is, and I go okay, and like you cover classic movies, and we could all expand our horizon palette, and still to this day, be like my favorite movie is Goodfellas or one of them, and it's not the most original choice.
No, but yeah, it's virtually exactly the same kind of deal, I think, and it may be that some part in me started It's a Wonderful Podcast for cynical reasons because I saw too many younger people first get into movies that wouldn't look at older movies and would dismiss them, and I knew, while I was never like that myself, dismissive of older movies, I certainly was one of those annoying people that I saw in hindsight that completely misunderstood the point of Al Pacino's Scarface.
Oh, don't get me wrong about
Completely.
Scar. I was middle school into Scarface. I had like that like when they released it on DVD for the first time, like that was a big deal, and I was in seventh grade or sixth grade. I saw anything. I didn't really have parameters. Like my dad showed it to me on the two VHS tapes. I was like, this movie's great, and I watched it. I understood at the time, but no one knew it. I think there's a classic joke from a comic. It was like a lot of rappers were into Scarface at that time, like 2004, 2005. And you watch MTV's Cribs, and they have the posters and their idols, Tony Montana, and they would go. There was a joke being like, I think they just turned it off halfway through.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst person to idolize in the entire world. But every insecure 15-year-old loves
I had a
Tony
Montana poster smoking a cigar.
Yeah, so did I, because that's just what happened. And then a few years later, you watch it again with a bit more
it's a fun
maturity,
movie,
I suppose, and a bit more kind of understanding of movies and what kind of how stuff's put together, and you realize, oh, it's actually kind of like the opposite of what I thought it was. That makes me appreciate it almost even more because it kind of half tricks.
Do you want to yell?
Sorry.
No, you're good. With while we're on the Scarface topic, real quick. So, do you want to like yell at people if they say like, "Oh, I love Scarface," and do you want to be like, "No, watch De Palma's, watch Blowout and Sisters. They're so much better."
I still really like Sky.
I like the movie. I just mean like Brian De Palma, pre Scarface or like pre 1981 or whenever it was made. His run in the 70s, those movies are. I picked up two really nice Criterions recently of Blowout and Sisters.
Nice.
And View to Kill is. I mean, anyway, they're. It's all good stuff. No,
it's a weird example. Because I genuinely think that movie kind of epitomizes what I think was immature about myself at that age and my movie loving. And that's not to say you can't love these movies. I still love these movies, but you can acknowledge that like you misunderstood the point of every single mobster movie you ever watched.
I think in horror, there especially that has a weird lane too, right? Like there's a trend right now, like nothing can be bad, and like I like to acknowledge that my favorite genre of movie is so bad it's good. And but like, it's like, yeah, I'm very on the page of like, I love whatever you want to love and enjoy it and whatever. But I need to acknowledge that, like, yeah, no, that like act not the movie X, but like movie B or whatever, that was bad, but you had fun with it. Like, try to don't try to tell me Date Movie was a good movie. Like
Yeah.
or like Scary Movie 5 or whatever it is, right? Like, as long as we could sit here and acknowledge, or like one of my favorites, Troll 2, I'm holding up a sticker for people that like
I love
just
it.
acknowledge this shit's bad. But it's
Yeah.
great. It's the best. Anyway, that I totally get that. So before we get into Wicker Man, I did want to ask you though, have you gotten any like the new term like elevated horror movies because Wicker Man definitely, if this was released like today, it would be an elevated horror movie. I don't think.
I could talk about the subgenres of horror for hours and hours and hours, and please forgive me if at some point during this episode I actually do that. Um, elevated horror. I mean, I admittedly don't like that
Really?
term either. I don't like the term. I love the movies that
Oh,
people
okay. But
put under
the
that.
term,
The
I mean,
term
we
I
have
find very pretentious. Very pretentious. I find like it's kind of somebody going, "Oh, I like elevated horror because a simple slasher movie is not good enough for
Mhm.
me." It's
well,
like, grow up, get out of my face with it.
we have I mean, it's really introduced because of Scream 5. Like, we have the term requel now in
Yeah,
elevated horror, and I do understand it because I think you would just call it like art house horror before. But I do what you're saying because there is a level like, and then I got to be an uber nerd when someone goes, "Well, I really only like A24 movies." I've heard people say that, and I go, A24 doesn't produce movies. Like, they don't fund the movies; they just purchase them and distribute them. They're just cataloging the movies.
they're all a similar style, but that's
Yeah.
because A24 picked that style
Yes.
and go, "We want that."
Same with Neon, which is
Yeah,
kind of coming up. But so because of recently, Midsummer recently is very heavily compared to Midsummer.
yeah.
Um, and definitely watching the two, I have found Midsummer. I found it actually just in very like in concept they're similar, but they're such two wildly different movies.
Well, I mean, the Wicker Man kind of fundamentally falls under folk horror.
Yeah,
I think Midsummer is more than just simple folk horror. It's got more going on than simply being a folk horror
it's
movie.
trying to be a real horror movie.
It's trying to be. I mean,
Not real. You know what I
it's
mean when I say
trying
real
to.
horror movie.
Yeah,
Like,
it's trying to be like three different things, and I think it succeeds at being those
oh,
things.
it's phenomenal. I mean,
It is.
they just pissed me off though, A24, because I bought the 4K nice special edition. I just have to get this off on an audio medium right now. My uh and
Rage.
it's yeah, it's beautiful. It's this package, and it wasn't cheap, which I have no problem. But the fucking disc has zero special features.
No.
It doesn't even have a menu.
Oh
It's like
dear.
putting in a videotape almost. It's like, cool, you gave me this packaging with book, but like, and it's the director's cut. But I was like, yeah, I want to listen to audio commentary from Ari Aster or whatever. Anyway, that's my gripe.
You got to make sure of that sort of stuff. I mean, I only buy Blu-rays now. That
I only
I'm in a frame of mind now where I only buy Blu-rays and even still DVDs, but I'm just going to make sure they've got additional
yeah,
stuff.
I
They've
didn't
got to
look.
be good quality actual pieces of physical media rather than just being the base movie.
Yeah, I learned that $50 later. I learned that lesson.
That's bad.
And it's like I said, it's a beautiful book. It has the sketches in it. It's like, even no main menu. Anyway,
Is there
um,
a poster?
well, no, no, it is a nice piece. Put it that way. It's just like, you got me. That's what I felt like. I was like, all right, you got me. I could have bought this something on like Apple for like $6 if I really wanted to watch the director's cut. Um, but what I did want to, I'm glad we bring up physical media because I was looking around and I wish like Criterion or someone released the Wicker Man, with a full on like special featured
Yeah.
Blu-ray. There is one out there, but it's like definitely on resale value right now. It's like $150, and I don't know. It's not from Arrow, but it's from one of those,
No, I don't think Arrow do a Wicker Man actually. My copy of the Wicker Man it's a DVD. It's got
I have a
features on,
DVD.
but it's one I've had for years.
I have a DVD of it. It was when when Blockbuster was closing, and I was like, okay, that I'll watch one day.
Yeah.
Never saw it, and watch it, and I still have it.
Even Criterion, I have a weird relationship with Criterion because Criterion has a weird relationship with Britain.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It doesn't like having all of its movies available for British purchase.
Oh, that's weird.
Or on, British, because we have a different region
Yeah.
of players and that sort of stuff. So
I think 4Ks are all region free, though.
I also find Criterion to be more expensive than other very good distributors when it comes to physical media. So I go for Arrow. I go for Powerhouse Films, Indicator series. I love that sort of stuff.
Internet,
Eureka are a good one.
Over where you go, international, or where you guys are, in Britain and all that, you guys have some really good the secondhand distributors. Like I feel like here I have like Arrow and like Vinegar Syndrome, and Criterion, and then like even Vinegar Syndrome. I mean, this is the hard podcast, but I'm like, I don't feel like spending $30 on a movie that was like a B movie. I did just pick up so one of the hardest movies. We'll talk. I promise whoever's listening, we will talk about Wicker Man.
We will.
One of the hardest movies to find, at least here in the States, is Dawn of the Dead.
Really?
It's not
George Romero?
Yeah, it's not in print. Or they put it out
Wow.
they only put it out a handful of times or something. There's something weird with it. So recently I eBayed and I got, I don't know which company it is, but this beautiful box set. I do think it came from Britain. And it has like all 3 cuts of the movie. The only thing I can't watch because of the region player is the special features disc.
Oh.
But I was like, that's okay. I have the movies because I've been looking for it for Dawn of the Dead and then Dogma is out of print in the US.
You can't. Dogma's not.
I have a.
You're right. It's weird.
I have a DVD copy of it.
Dogma's not on any streaming. It's not on. It's a really tough movie to find.
Yeah, fucking Weinsteins. All right, so Wicker Man. Real quick for anyone listening, I'm gonna read the 1973's Wicker Man. I'm gonna read the synopsis that was on Wikipedia, Google, and it's blind. It's a blind read. So let's see if this is accurate. Sergeant Howie arrives on a small Scottish island in Summer Isle to investigate the report of a missing child. A conservative Christian, the policeman observes the residents' frivolous sexual displays and strange pagan rituals, particularly the temptations of Willow, daughter of the island magistrate, Lord Summerisle, the sergeant. The more Sergeant Howie learns about the islanders' strange practices, the closer he gets to tracking down the missing child. That is one of the better synopses I have read from Google because they're never. It's hit or miss.
I think that there was some mistakes in terms of facts. I don't think Willow is the innkeeper's daughter. So
I think.
Or the landlord's daughter. There's a whole song about it in the movie. Yeah, this person hasn't watched the movie who's writing
daughter
it.
of the island. I don't know what a magistrate is. So maybe that's
magistrate. So that'd be like the law person. The like.
Oh yeah, that's wrong.
Person. But there's not even. I don't know.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. They're saying she's the daughter of Christopher Lee.
She's not the daughter of Christopher Lee at all. I love it.
Well, and that's why I read it, and that's why I read it blind, because it's always like when we did Janine's episode of Scream. If you look up Scream, it's like this horror movie that changed the genre. There's no there's no information. I'm like, oh, yes, and like,
what did it do?
yeah,
It changed the genre. How? I'm not going to tell you. That's a secret.
So I'll just ramble off a few fun facts and just we're gonna run through the movie. I thought it was really neat that Rod Stewart tried to get the movie banned because his girlfriend Britt Eklund, Willow, is naked in it. So he tried to get the movie banned, which is hysterical.
It is from Rod Stewart as well, who parades himself around.
Yeah.
Like
who Britt Eklund is like. I can imagine she was naked before this movie. Like she was like a sex symbol.
She is the epitome of sexy person in a British movie from the late 60s, early 70s. You put Britt Eklund and you put Ingrid Pitt in your movies, and they're both in this movie, and they both end up bearing all in this movie, and it's just kind of expected.
Yeah,
because it's these two in the movie, so you just
that was the first kind of fact that made me chuckle. The other thing I didn't know, and I imagine, I don't know which version you watched, and I don't know which version I watched. I rented whatever the one was Amazon. But this one, there were multiple versions of this movie with longer and shorter versions of it all over the place. The original negative went missing and may even be lying under the M3 motorway because over 300 canisters of film used as filler in the construction of that road. To this day, despite a director's cut being available, the movie is still considered by most involved in its production as unfinished.
Well, I know I own the theatrical.
Then I watched the theatrical too. I think that's good. And then this really got made. This movie really got made because Christopher Lee had such a heavy hand in making this movie because he wanted to get away from being known as Dracula. And he thinks this is his best work he's done, and I gotta agree.
This shows the kind of weird things I watch on YouTube. There's an interview from the mid-90s with Christopher Lee on Icelandic television. Because for some reason he speaks a little bit of Icelandic as well. The man he spoke every single language.
Christopher Lee's whose James Bond is partially written off of.
Yes.
He's an interesting man.
He's a ridiculously interesting man. And in that interview he states directly that up until that point at least, I mean, I'm sure probably he enjoyed doing Lord of the Rings.
I was wondering when that quote was said.
But up to that point, The Wicker Man was his favourite movie, and I love that. I really love that about him.
Yeah, it's unique. A long storied career, even before Lord of the Rings, and he picked that one, and he worked for free. So those are just the kind of fun facts I had queued up. Directed by Robin Hardy, and starring Edward Woodward, Britt Eklund, Ingrid Pitt, and Christopher Lee. But I love that we start the movie off, and though we do get the title screen thanking Scotland for just being like, thanks for letting us use this, which seems so of its time. Of we know we offended you. That's the only reason why it's there.
Yeah, because it's not it's not a huge movie. It's not overly polished. It's an early 70s movie, and it feels like an early 70s movie. There's one particular shot where Edward Woodward, whose name, by the way, I always adore saying because it sounds even better, I think, in an English accent, is just Edward Woodward.
That's nice.
Say it 5 times fast. It's just silly to say. Why is he called Edward Woodward? It sounds stupid. But there's one scene where he's just shocked. I mean, he's shocked virtually every time he's on screen in this movie. But it does the phenomenally 70s movie thing of the quick zoom.
I know exactly what shot you're talking about.
Into the face. And it's like every filmmaker in the 70s whether it's in America or in Britain, particularly in America, because you obviously get the end of the American studio system, late 60s, and then in the 70s, all the new wave directors come and they try a load of things out because they can now, because the freedom is there now. The equipment of making movies also becomes lighter, more portable, more usable. And they all collectively seem to decide, oh God, we can move the camera quickly now and zoom fast. So let's do it in every movie.
No one did it more than a guy we were talking about earlier than Brian De Palma in those movies.
No, he's Brian De Palma all the time. All the time.
I do love, like, as most humans should be, you know, I do love that Scorsese, who's still kicking ass and making movies today, will have some of these older shots in his films, and I always like it. Always goes, that's nice in there. You know, I mean, it's not that new, but like in The Departed, like that odd circle shot of, like, you know, the screen goes black and I think it circles on like Leonardo DiCaprio's face, and I'm like, always like, oh, that's just him taking an old filmmaking, or now it would be old filmmaking technique, and putting in this modern movie.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different than just like the Jason Bourne movie that was released the week before that.
It's also the kind of stuff that Tarantino has always paid homage to.
Yeah.
Or
stolen.
Depending on how you think about it.
Done right, it's homage. Done wrong, it's we've covered aside on the main show, Fire State Film, we've covered so many like Tarantino knockoff movies of like the late 90s, like forgotten, like crime thrillers, or they were just clearly trying to be a Tarantino movie. Anyway, none of them are great except when Tarantino does it. So for the most part, we keep finding out when we pick, you know, something like The Big Hit.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so we do start with Neil. It's Sergeant Howie. I'm gonna flip names and all around. And for anyone listening, if you haven't realized, there's gonna be spoilers. We're talking about the whole movie.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So what I loved about this, it really starts right away though. We get it after the opening credits. He's there, he's on the island. More of my other reference of this movie has really been the remake, the Cage remake.
Which I hope to God that people didn't see the title of this episode and think we were talking about Nicolas Cage shouting about bees.
Well, we'll put 1973 in there, and I will say this. You all know, I'm a Cage head. I love Nicolas Cage. I've seen The Wicker Man a few times, and my wife and I were watching it once for like how does it get made, because like she don't do horror movies, but I was like, it'd be fun. And I remember her going, "There's a good movie in here somewhere," and I'm like,
"It's this."
Yeah, I remember going, "Yeah, it's a remake of a movie that's much shorter."
Yeah,
and a lot more concise. Anyway, so I kept thinking of moments from that during this watch, but we start off in a plane, and then he sees some fishermen on the docks, and he basically bullies his way already onto he's like, "Well, I'm a policeman, so you have to let me on." And the guy's like, "All right," they let him on the island. And I mean, but immediately we are like reminded of how he is a devout Christian. It's such an important piece of the puzzle of this film.
It is. The entire movie is. I'm someone, I talk about this all the time on whatever shows I'm doing. I'm someone who looks at movies as big picture, as ideas, as scenarios, more so I do the plot details. That's why I love this movie, because at its core, it's just a culture clash. It's not even, I don't even think this movie has a kind of attitude of we prefer one side or the other. It just presents these different viewpoints.
It's also not a hard. I mean, literally, literally, I could say this is my favorite musical of all time. Like, it's a musical at the same time, but you're right, it doesn't pick a side, and the whole movie, I'm watching it, and I'm like, fuck this guy, because he's a bully throughout it, and not respecting of their anything, because it's slightly different.
But the entire movie is obviously from his perspective.
But then the ending, I still have no care for his character that he gets burned in the pyre. But the ending, when he gives his speech and he talks about how this isn't going to help your crops and all of this, it was the only time in the movie I have a note there of like, I, I agree with him. Like, you're like, that is now on my end. Like, I'm not religious in no means, but I'm like, that's just a scientific cultural fact. Like,
yeah, it's strange. Tonally, it could be seen as not quite knowing what it is, but I think it really is very, very deliberate with its tone.
I think
because because like I said, it's so focused on just being Howie's perspective. You can watch this movie from the perspective of the islanders of Summer Isle themselves and laugh your head off.
I laughed. I enjoyed this movie more in a good way as a comedy.
And you can do. And when you're looking at it through Howie's eyes, if you watch this movie as Howie, it is terrifying.
Yeah, it's I like, I could see someone be like, that's horrifying. Like, it's I don't know if these movies scare you or not, but one of my favorite horror movies that truly still scares me is Rosemary's Baby. Weirdly similar time, similar look. And it's the same thing of the core of those movies, and in this movie too, is everyone's in on the joke except for me.
Yeah.
And that's the scariest thing.
It is terrifying when you think of it like that.
That's
especially when we obviously get to the very, very serious of what happens to Howie at the end of the movie.
Because watching it, and I watched it an hour before we were recording. I watched it, I guess, from the perspective of the Islanders, which wasn't intentional, but like the scenes of the May Day parade and the music, because this movie is littered with its own music that's supposed to be, I think, like part of Scottish, just like
it's just kind of Scottish folk,
folk music,
pagan music.
But the way it's played, and it's all light. There's no serious song. Like, I mean, like it's a very flowy and light, and juxtaposed to the shots you're seeing, none of it looks scary. I mean, the masks are scary, but they're not shot in a scary way. There's no, comparing it to, let's compare it to Midsummer. There's things in Midsummer that are like shot to scare you.
Yeah,
I don't think anything in Wicker Man is shot to scare me. Even the hand on the dresser. I mean, maybe it was dated. It was like, that was me, my perspective. Nothing felt shot to scare me. It was just like, he was intense. It was intense at moments, though.
There's one shot that I think is done for pure horror. It is right near the end of the movie. Howie is being dragged up the hill, and you get that little 70s zoom thing that we've talked about, and he just goes, "Oh God, oh Jesus Christ," and that's scary. That is the scary shot, because you get the reverse shot then of the huge Wicker Man.
That's true.
The rest of the movie, though, I completely agree with you. It's very naturalistic.
Because, like,
very
even, and like, we're jumping around wherever, but like you said, there is not much to this movie too. There's not much really plot points to walk through. It's a very simple story, but even our montage, right, when he's looking house to house, and even the girl falls out, and like, she's playing prank. Because of its choicing of editing and music, it's played as like, oh, I'm having fun with the audience, and watch us prank as an island. Watch us prank this tight ass.
Exactly. And that's why I think it's the scariest scenario horror movie ever. Because if you think about how not only kind of at the beginning of the movie, I suppose, how he's frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
It then turns to disgust. It then turns to this kind of real anger and despair. And then at the end of the movie, it's like really virtually on his hands and knees begging for his life.
Well, I can't. Yeah, because to go through a little more, like he first gets there and he's looking for Rowan, and no one's like, I don't know that girl, like, and he gets but he checks in to stay overnight, like I think that's like kind of our first beat, and they sing a song in the pub about the innkeeper's daughter.
The landlord's daughter.
The landlord's daughter.
It's the horniest song in movie history.
So horny, and you know, and so you have that, and we see that, and he's like, you see those gears grinding. He's like annoyed, and then he's like, what the fuck's wrong with you people? Then is that when he goes for the walk and he sees them fucking in the
Yes.
Yeah, so he goes for the walk,
exactly.
and he sees like a dozen couples together being watched by other people, but not sexually watched, just fucking.
Yeah, just in a field.
Yeah. And he's like, all right. And he runs to his room. He basically runs to his room, and he starts becoming more and more of a dismissive and a prick. He's not polite. He's just stern. What's her? Britt Eklund is the one that, is the landlord's daughter, and she's like coming on to him, and
it's the energy, the vibes, and the wall.
She's touching the wall, and once again another song we're singing, and he's like disturbed and annoyed by it, and he I think at that point though, Howie wants to go, like does want to be tempted by it.
Absolutely. It is the movie really likes portraying its pagan side. I think it really likes portraying its very spiritual energy kind of focused side. Because it is full of it. And then, like I said, the movie doesn't view that as horrific. Howie views that as horrific.
Howie views it as terrible, and even I'll use her character's name. Even Willow though goes, oh, okay, like she kind of goes, okay, it's not for everyone. Like she's not upset about him not wanting, and we do get the reveal of he's a virgin, and my first note though is because Edward Woodward does not look like a young man here. I'm like, wow, he has waited a long time.
Yeah, the man is devout in his faith.
Yeah. So, but that you're right. It's that, and then we get him, and he was like, okay, fuck this, and he goes to the school.
Yes. Before we move on to the school, I just want to bring up how camp is the innkeeper.
Oh, it's so camp. Haha. It's like this, he's always mean mugged with the upshot camera, and he's like I feel like the guy's giving faces. Was that one of the townies?
I don't know.
Because the innkeeper, because I think they used quite a bit of the local, like from the village they were shooting in.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I know it was. Unfortunately, there's not actually a place called Summer Isle.
Mm-hmm.
This was shot in another part of Scotland, on the mainland. But I love that innkeeper. He's the sassiest guy. Who's just like, yes, I let all these people have their way with my daughter. That's no problem to me. And he talks like Professor McGonagall. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, man, you're right.
These are the kind of things I get obsessed
with. No, it's a fun character. It's a fun character for sure. He's a little too like, yeah, take my daughter.
He doesn't care. This is not an issue.
Do you think if he laid with her, I don't know, I've never used the term laid with someone.
That's a very professional way.
Yeah, if he had
putting
sex,
it.
if he had sex with her, do you think they would have been like, oh, they would have just gave up and searched for someone else? Like, you're not a virgin anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think they had to prove that he was devout enough,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, yeah. I think that was that, right? Because like 1973 Britt Eklund, like
Yeah.
not many. Well, not many men are maybe in that scenario are going to say no.
Well,
I should say people. Not many people are going to say no. Maybe. And, or it's hard to at least not given a little in temptation. You shouldn't, if you're in a relationship or married or whatever. But they set it up well. And like I said, she's not aggressive. Like it would be,
no.
fuck it. Even in the '70s, if another one of those, filmmakers shot it, it could have been played so much different.
A lot of that scene of the Willow's kind of temptation with the song, it's kind of cut with shots of Howie getting closer to the wall, starting to really sweat, starting
Sweating,
to kind of.
he's touching the wall.
You can feel this energy come through, and he's so close to opening that little door between the two rooms and just going, ah.
He came. He came. He
Well,
that
I
night.
didn't necessarily want to, outright say.
No, it's
things
I'm
like
sorry.
that.
Oh, it was a good episode, guys. It's more than enough. So get that, and then this. I think the first time like I get pissed off in this movie is when he goes into the schoolyard and just erases their whiteboard.
Yeah.
It was the first time I was like, what? It was like the authoritative and aggressive. And I don't know. I don't think I skipped anything. Oh, sorry. He does notice all when he's in the inn. This is important. He does notice all of the harvest photos and everything from the May Queen and the May Day celebration in the inn. But then he goes to the students and asks them, and this I do like. I get his like cop as the detective skills though. Of like, there's this name in here.
Yeah.
And I do love the one girl, the first girl he does talk to though. She's like, yeah, I play with Rowan all the time. Like, but they stay in the field, like this and that. And she's like, it's a hare. It's a rabbit, and it's a great little. It has such a good payoff later.
It does. It really, really does. And because this is the kind of stuff that the Islanders fully believe in. They fully, genuinely believe in reincarnation. So to
But
bring, Howie to the island in the first place under the guise that there's, that Rowan's missing. Because it's all, the movies and the entire movie is one big manipulation. Which I love as well because I kind of enjoy movies like that, I guess. But it's much easier for the children to play along because they're actually they're brought up in this society where these beliefs are absolutely normal. So yes, obviously, Rowan is dead and she's being reincarnated as a hare, which is perfectly normal for her sister to just say, "Oh yeah, Rowan's fine. She's a hare."
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it was your sister. Yeah, nothing's presented as what it is, and but that's like the ending bit, right? Like when they're playing the chop game.
Yes.
And I'm jumping way ahead, and I was generally startled when the head cut, and it was just like, nope, like, because like this is a goof, and like we knew that was a headdress. Because they're never presented as a vindictive or like people kind of like it sucks to say the comparisons to Midsummer. Like Midsummer, it's like okay, they're taking bodies and like sewing them and putting them over spits and like really playing with the dead.
Yeah, they're
This
presented quite favourably for a lot of the movie. Really, it is very easy to
but
watch this movie and think, why are you just pestering these people?
that's what it.
These people are fine. There's nothing wrong with these people.
He
Stop
gets
being so uppity.
Yeah, and he gets so, like I said, the first thing that pissed me off is the chalkboard. He races the chalkboard, writes on it for no reason, just to write the girl's name. And then like, he finds more, and he finally meets Lord Summerisle, though, because everyone's like, well, you gotta talk to Lord Summerisle. That's who we want you to talk to. Every person he talks to is like respectful, and he talks to him, and they have a very, like, maybe because it was Christopher Lee, and I think just James Bond, not like his villain. They have a Bond like meeting.
It is a little bit, yeah.
Oh, because before we started recording, I was telling Morgan, I said when I was watching this movie, there were moments of it that were just like, I don't know, maybe because it's 1973 and it's Scottish, or I mean the movie's British, and they're talking about, and Christopher Lee's in it, but I'm like, there's things of like James Bond in it, like especially Her Majesty's Secret Service, like the shirt, the Austin Powers shirt with the ruffles that Christopher Lee's wearing, which is what he wears on Her Majesty's Secret Service, James Bond, and then the way the music changes from the folk to then when he's trying to rescue Rowan when he finally finds her. That score, like a score comes in out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's a little more like rock and roll.
It's a real kind of, it's an intense tonal shift for an intense finale to the movie. It's very noticeable.
So I just noticed that, and it made me, very like, made me chuckle. But I want to ask you a question because you brought something up. This movie is just deceiving. Do you think that I think this? Do you think this movie should be called something else and not use the Wicker Man iconography?
Oh, I've never even thought about.
Because I think it makes sense. It's a great, it's a great silhouette. It's a great name. It does give away the end. Like, I know, like I think looking at it and everything, I think of like, okay, when's the Wicker Man going to come play? And I think it would figure out like we're going to burn him alive in it real quick.
Yeah, I get that actually. I'm gonna be honest. I've never ever thought about that because I've always known.
You've known, yeah.
I've always known the Wicker Man from the image of the Wicker Man.
Yeah.
Like,
what if it was called Summerisle?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know what the poster would be, but maybe like, and movies. I mean, movies do that all the time, especially like iconic films. They just take what's like, how many. Fuck, I've painted it before. It's not a spoiler or anything, but like, how many posters utilized, or DVDs or whatever, have utilized like Jack Nicholson through the door on The Shining.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I mean, the big one growing up, it's a really boring remake. When they remade Wreck, I think it was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it was called Quarantine, and they used Jennifer Carpenter, like her getting dragged away was the promos, and it's the last shot of the movie. It's not a good movie. It's not a good movie, but
I suppose in terms of that sort of stuff, you look at the poster of The Exorcist as the kind of perfect example.
It's perfect.
There's something there. We don't know what it is. Here's the lead up to the big something. Which you could this movie could be called Summerisle. That's a very happy, joyful title for this movie. I love that.
And they weren't letting people do that in the 70s.
Have the poster be the image of the Green Man in.
Yeah.
Face.
Oh, yeah.
That face. Have it be a maypole.
Mm-hmm. The pole's probably,
like
or Mayday or something. But I was just wondering that because it really is the ending. It's really what we're leading to watch that scene.
We are, the entire movie is one big crescendo up to it, and then it
Yeah.
kind of explodes all over the place in fire and blood. But
it's
Game of Thrones.
To my right, I have a Jaws poster because who doesn't have a Jaws poster somewhere in their home?
I do not have a Jaws.
All right, well, we need to change it, but it's like the Exorcist one, right? Like you see it, you know what it is: shark up, lady swimming. Great, I know what I'm going to see. You know what poster I love? Just side tangent. The original Child's Play poster, where it's the house, it's the house, the woman falling, and you just see the eyes of Chucky. And and it sells it sells the movie you're gonna see and it doesn't sell the wrong movie compared to the rest of every other time where it's like now it's just Chuck.
Yeah.
And I love that series. But anyway, so that was just I just was wondering that because it's right there, and I would like to show this to someone who has no idea what like a Wicker Man is.
I love introducing this movie to people because it's such a you find that it's really not a movie for everyone because
I don't
not just because it's shot a certain way, it's made a certain way, but because it can be I've found because it is a horror movie, it's only interested in being a horror movie. It's very deliberately a horror movie. It's just a bright, kind of light-hearted, on the surface horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's that 2 layers down. That is more terrifying than most horror movies. That 2 layers down layer.
I'm gonna sleep tonight and not think of any imagery or like fear of anything from this movie. Or like my wife, who's terrified of all horror movies, I could show her this any day of the week, and she'll go, "I don't get it." I mean, she'll get it, but like, it is funny to be talking about like the themes of the film. Growing up, I had a friend who loved the remake, but unironically, like we were in middle school, so but I remember him saying, "Man, like the Wicker Man, like it's so sad." Of that, like he was like, "It's so sad, it's so good, like you guys got to see it." We're 12 or whenever that movie came out, 2004 or 5, and I'm only bringing a remake up because it's the same core principle of this movie, and like if you watch it through those eyes, if like a 12-year-old's going, it's great because like how sad is this kind of tragic thing that's going on?
Yeah.
And I'm sure his opinion has changed of this of the iconic Nicolas Cage film. But it actually, who he one time in an interview like 10 years ago said he wanted to remake, but as a J horror film about ghosts.
Weird. Okay.
I love the man. You got to find that interview somewhere. It's bonkers. It's just like this doesn't even make sense. So, but he kind of then is finding more clues though about the island and what's going on, and then he does discover like their purpose, like the sacrifice, and he's like he puts it together with literature and missing photos that he finds. He's like, okay, she was murdered because they didn't have a bountiful harvest, and that's it. And
it's when he learns the extent of these people aren't just unusual islanders cut off from the mainland. They are full traditional pagans who will go to centuries-old lengths to
get their
do what they believe is the right thing to do.
So he does, because he says he gets permission from Lord Summerisle to examine the grave.
Yes.
They say, Rowan, she died. And guess what he does? But it's a fucking rabbit. is in the.
I love the grave digger, I suppose is what you would call him, because I think his name's Aubrey Morris, the actor. I always remember him from A Clockwork Orange because he's the one who spits on Malcolm McDowell's face really horribly.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah, that's the same guy.
Yeah, it's Aubrey Morris, you were right.
But he's like really camp as well in this movie. Everybody's got such a beautiful
camp.
Scottish accent.
Hell, even we didn't bring it up but even when he goes, "Oh, do you have any apples?" Like, and the whole like conversation of canned peaches and apples, like even Sergeant Howie is being camp in that scene, how he's delivering the lines.
Maybe it is truly just kind of northwest Scotland. I suppose I've always wanted to go to northwest Scotland, go to some of the islands, go to the Highlands and that kind of stuff, because I mean you do find villages that are cut off from a hell of a lot of other stuff. It's it's very particular insular kind of cultures.
Yeah, I've never. We were supposed to go to Ireland and Scotland for our honeymoon, so one day we will be going. But those plans haven't been booked yet, and
it's tough.
But so one day, but yeah, and I mean, we've covered on this podcast, we've covered a few movies. I guess one and more in particular, like The Ritual, the Netflix original movie, The Ritual. They go hiking. I believe that actually might be hiking through Scotland, I think, or Poland. It was the same thing, cut off and finding. Recently, I highly recommend if anyone's listening, the Wrong Turn remake they had. That was released this year, or it was released or last year under the radar. Similar kind of cut off people. It's not. It's in the United States, but it's the same. You're right. There's people just have traditions. That's what these things are. They're not, for the most part, not out to harm you. They are out to harm Howie.
They're not out to harm Howie because they don't like Howie. Howie's just the kind of person they need.
They need a virgin.
It's not, we hate Howie, we're going to murder him. It's we need this sacrifice. It's important to us. In a way, you understand both points of view, which is the kind of whole point of what I said before, where the movie kind of just presents the clash of people rather than giving you a side to pick.
So, and that you're absolutely right. And after we find that grave and all that, okay, so Howie's just kind of done though, and he's done with it, and he does, to Howie's credit, tries to get back in his plane. He's like, I'm gonna be back, like, and the plane doesn't work. So then he goes back in the.
Surprise, surprise! Someone messed with his plane.
Yeah, and I think this is we're at the hour mark of the movie, and weirdly the episode probably. And Howie is like and then this is when the things ramp up. Okay, so we're seeing the parade start. We're seeing the May Day, or it's the day before the May Day, and he was he just asleep, or he didn't eat something. He was just asleep, and they were like. People were like the landlord, or they were like, okay, like we'll give him this and knock him out for about 3 or 4 days, like, so he doesn't see any of this stuff.
Yeah, he absolutely had enough. He stormed back into the inn and just goes, "I'm gonna rest. I need to just be alone."
Yeah.
Then
and he punches the guy out, which is such a great punching scene. Steals the costume, then goes to the festivities, and. Like we kind of mentioned earlier, so the way the festivities are shot, it's all presented as fun. There's playing around, they're playing this game.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got to, or at least I assume that is completely factual. That's natural for if you lived in a pagan community. That's what your May Day parade would look like.
If I lived in a pagan community, it'd be that. I'd be like, oh, I'm looking for that, and it'd be like. Hanging out at the pub, at the inn, the pub, or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
And drinking and singing. That's what you would be doing for entertainment.
twirling round that maypole singing that song. I always try and remember that Mayday song as well. That happened like I think it's about halfway or about half an hour into the movie. The movie is you're right.
It's an hour 20 minutes.
Yeah, it is full of songs, but there's that on that branch there was a nest, and on that nest there was an egg, and that song I always try and remember it. I never can. It's so many different things. It's all about kind of circle of life and all that kind of stuff. It's better than the Lion King Circle of Life song. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it's
But it's a fun song. It's a fun song.
It's a fun, and that's how the movie I think is sounding and presented, and then this is like I mentioned the head chop happens, and he is like he still hasn't revealed himself, but then he does find Rowan up there in like kind of the mountain area or the field. And he's like, all right, let's go. And that was the James Bond scene. If for people listening, I was talking about a little earlier. And they run away. And then this is basically Christopher Lee. Oh, by the way, we also get great Christopher Lee in like kind of doing drag.
Truly, Christopher Lee's costumes in this movie are just incredible.
You were talking about before recording. You want to get his yellow sweater, and I gotta agree with that. It's a perfect yellow color. But he's in this costume and like he's leading the march. And they're having fun. Then we get to the top and he's like, "Good job, Rowan." You know, and it was like basically he's like it's a trick, and he explains it all. With everything with such certainty. You know,
this is fact.
Everything you've done and we've made you think has been on purpose. Not at one point on this island have you thought you got the better of us. We knew we wanted you to think we were crazy. We wanted you to see all them titties. And feel uncomfortable. And he's like, and you're a virgin. And the adult male virgin is the strongest possible sacrifice our gods can have.
I think what are the phrases? It's a man who has come of his own free will.
Yeah, and he came of his own free will.
Because they also wanted him to pretend to be the punch fool figure in the costume, because or in the parade.
Because they keep saying you're a fool.
Yeah, they wanted him to run after Rowan when they brought Rowan out of that cave. Notice he runs up there completely on his own. Nobody stops him. Nobody thinks, what's Mr. McGregor the innkeeper doing running after Rowan? Because they know he's not Mr. McGregor the innkeeper. They just want
him to
think he
Yeah, it's a great point, especially like you said, the costuming and the word fool. I kept noticing that.
Yeah.
And that he's beside it, and then I think because he has his right, Christopher Lee has his moment, but then this is when I think Edward Woodward, Sergeant Howie, gets to have his moment to really give a monologue and like truly put emotion in this character that's been like stoic all movie. And we mentioned it earlier, but he gives the conversation of or the talking points of this is nuts, like you're not here. I'm sorry, you're not. This is not going to bring your crops. It has to do with the roots. He's bringing now science into it, not just his faith.
Yeah.
I did forgot in one part I really like this movie, and we haven't really talked too much about the Christianity comparison to that, but I love the conversation that Christopher Lee and Edward Woodward have at the mansion about because when he brings up Christianity. And Christopher Lee goes, he had his chance about like Jesus Christ. He goes, he had his chance to, do that, to succeed or whatever. And I really like that line of dialogue because it was Christopher Lee or the Summer Lord acknowledging that, like, yeah, I'm fully aware of the world's most popular religion.
Yeah.
And that is part of has been a piece of my religion. I'm not so different than you is the conversation they kind of have. And I really appreciated that scene.
Yeah, it is a very good scene.
Not to
Any
jump
scene,
all the way back when we're at the end, but
no, but it is, and
uh,
we should have spoken a lot about that scene because I suppose it is the central kind of question or philosophy of this
yeah.
movie is this debate between Christianity and paganism. The movie doesn't pick a side, like I've said. It
No,
simply presents the idea.
and it shouldn't. I don't like. I didn't.
No,
No,
it
no
shouldn't.
one. I don't want to come to a movie and be told, and in one way or another, be preached at
No, and
if it's not
it's not
done
that.
right.
It's not propaganda in any
No,
to any
that's the
sense.
word I was looking for, propaganda. But they have that, and then he reveals the plan, and all of that, and then he drags him. Then the guys drag him up the hill. Howie tries to fight back a little bit, but he can. He's outmatched. They drag him up the hill, and you said there was that one shot, the horror, 'cause he sees it. It's there in hands, and he sees the Wicker Man, and he immediately knows he's going that thing, and they're gonna light that shit right up. And yeah, and my favorite part of the ending scene, I'm sure you noticed it, is the audio. This is the only time the psalm he's saying his psalm while he's being burned alive, or about to be being burned alive. And I have Wikipedia right up here, so it's Psalm 22, and they're singing "Summer is income in."
Yes,
Uh,
summer is a coming in. I think it's kind of an old Middle English
okay,
kind of
so
pagan song or Celtic song, I suppose.
yeah, they're singing that song while he's singing that, and the way this was mixed, or I don't know the correct terming really, but they're about the same level where and the fire is roaring, and it's uncomfortable however way you cut that, splice the audio very particularly of that
Yeah,
scene. Like, yeah, the fire's happening, and like we use a great imagination.
yeah. There's animals squealing because they've been put in the Wicker Man as well.
Yeah.
I think there's pigs in there, there's sheep in there, there's chickens in there. They're making all sorts of noise. Obviously, the Wicker Man's on fire now, so you're getting the huge roar of the fire. Howie singing "The Lord is my shepherd" and
Hmm.
the rest of the Summer Islanders swinging their arms
Yeah.
with huge smiles on their faces, all of them wearing beautiful turtlenecks.
That's why you're wearing a turtleneck today. I love it.
It is. I wear a turtleneck all the damn time. This is nothing new for me. And singing, their traditional song about the incoming of summer, the incoming of, because it's all about growth. It's all about the harvest for them, and that is
Sure.
the
No,
prime growth time. So
it's
they're happy.
fantastic. Because there's so much. You're right. Like with this growth, and then like I didn't even process the other animals in
Yeah,
it being in there as well.
it's the noisiest scene.
This movie does such a good job of being so different. And different in like not like a truly like it's not like wildly like plotless and art house. Like I covered and I had a blast covering it. I love watching it. The Criterion. Like,
Yeah.
one of the episodes I covered for this show is House. Hasu.
Oh, okay.
And that movie's so wild. And I only bring it up because I think they share similar DNA. And it was like before recording, I was like, how the fuck am I going to talk about this movie? How are we going to plot this one out? Didn't have that with Wicker Man, but they have that similar DNA where like it's the right amount of weird. Wicker
Yeah.
Man, it knows the tone it sets, but it changes its scene. Um, and I do think like it's one that definitely gets probably better on more watches.
Do you know what? It really, really does. it gets better once you notice more tiny little details, and whether that is music cues, whether that is little things to do with the acting, it's very, very deliberately directed. I think there's not a missed beat at all, and it does get better and better upon rewatch, because when you rewatch it, you do learn more and more about it. Adds to that appreciation. You can watch it on that first time and think, how is this a horror movie? This is quite funny. But you watch it again and you go, okay, this is a horror movie. This is renowned as a horror movie. What am I not seeing in a horror movie?
Yeah,
and you watch it and then you're like, oh, okay. And then you watch it again and it just becomes more and more horrific to you.
I remember my dad may watch. I've only seen this movie. This is my second time seeing it. I watched it once in high school, well over 10 years. It was probably 14 years ago that I saw this movie. But I remember this movie was on top 100 horror movie countdowns of all times.
Yeah.
Bravo. They have all the YouTube up. You should watch it. It's a great countdown. But back when they showed me, I'm watching it. I'm in middle school when and it comes across, and one of the guys explaining, it's like, yeah, it's this odd thing. I think it got ranked like 43 on their list. And he was like, this strong conservative, and he describes it. And then there's these like naked women all running around. And he's like bothered by it. And like, that's what the talking head explained the movie as. And I remember my dad going, not knowing what the movie is, going, what's the problem there? Like, okay, like, and
it's a poor description.
Yeah, I remember thinking like, we probably should watch it because it probably is something there, that comforting, and this movie has a great sense of foreboding to it.
It does.
Well.
It does.
So anything else, we haven't covered or touched upon that you'd like to cover?
Oh, look, like I said, I could talk about various details about this movie for hours, but I suppose bringing it back to a more general sense is that you don't need, I think particularly with horror, you don't need plot after plot after plot after plot to be an effective horror movie. You just need a purposeful scenario, and a scenario that you know how to sit in as a film. And if you do that for 80 minutes, this movie is 80 minutes long.
It's short. This podcast is longer. Might be longer than the movie.
It certainly is.
Yeah, Morgan, I don't think I could have summed it up any better. It's a great encapsulation of everyone's in the joke except for you, and that's the horror. And to me, it's the scariest kind of horror. Because when you're included, you're like, cool, I'm in the club. But when you're out, not included, it's just paranoia.
Exactly. Exactly. And folk horror needs to be more, not more respected, because it is respected. I guess it just kind of, I feel it needs to be more in the conversation of great horror subgenres, and it's because there's not loads of great examples of folk horror. It's mainly around the late 60s, early 70s, and it's mainly Britain that made them.
Yeah, there's about 4 or so when I was reading about it up today, and unfortunately I don't have it in front of me, but they reference, like, it was like, it's Wicker Man, and then like 3 other movies, and like that's about it in folk horror. Only other question I have for you is, did you watch the spiritual sequel that the director made in 2011?
You know what? I never have, and I don't really know why. I've not got an excuse.
The Wicker Tree? I haven't. I'm curious because we were talking about vagaries and all of this, and the director was like, yeah, it's a spiritual sequel. It's vague, like things are up to your interpretation. And then Christopher Lee, I guess when it was because something goes, nope, 2 different characters. There's no relation. It was like, it sounded like it was like shut down. I'm like, okay. So I'm curious to see it. I wish I had watched it for this
Absolutely. I would see.
But anyway, yeah, I think we covered the movie pretty well, and I know, like I said, we could keep talking to find these little plot details, but having said all of this, Morgan, where can the people find you?
Well, obviously, my main home podcasting is It's a Wonderful Podcast. We have 3 shows over there. We have It's a Wonderful Podcast, the namesake show. Every Friday, that's me, Janine. If you watch the movie trivia show, then that is Janine the Machine, or Janine Bryce, if you just know of General.
From the Scream episode of Flyover State of Fear.
Episode, yes.
Yeah, she's great.
And also Nolan Dean as well, who every Friday we alternate on that. I'm always there, but that is a celebration of old movies and
it's a fantastic podcast.
Movies, yeah. We have Morgan Hasn't Seen every Wednesday.
Janine
need to watch things.
You're going through Will Ferrell films right now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes. At time of this recording, I think at time of this recording, the last episode we published was actually Step Brothers, which is,
I love that movie. By time this is released, you'll be on to whatever well into your next.
Yes.
But that's excellent. Yeah, go follow them at that channel, and Morgan on Twitter at the Purple Dawn.
Yes.
Really great follow and for years. And as always, you could find me on this channel, Flyover State of Film, and Chendango One. At this point, when you're listening to it, mute me. I'm talking about baseball, and you could just mute that.
I like this as well. I have been. I don't know what the word is, but I went watching one baseball game in 2018, and it was when I was in LA, and it was the Mets and
Dodgers.
The Mets won. It was the Mets. Dodgers.
Yeah,
the Mets won, and I'm now a Mets fan. So
oh, you are? Oh, Morgan.
That's how that was. A very, very casual
Morgan,
Mets
I got
fan.
so much stuff to say anyway, and I'm sure you see my retweets, and you're just vicariously living on Mets.
I do, and I like it. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Let's go Mets. Okay, so at this point I am. And then you can follow the Flyover State of Fear Twitter. Oh, man, you just made my night. I'm a Mets fan. All right, well, let's go Mets and stay frightful, everyone. Welcome to Flyover State of Fear.